I recommend that you stay for this entire episode so that you can learn 3 money habits as well as learning how to break these money habits so that you can change your financial future. Are your habits with your money costing you a stable financial future? Hello, welcome to Bartelle's Money Talk. And today we have a certified financial planner with us, and her goal is to help women. Can you please introduce yourself to us?
Sure, Teresa, I would love to. Hi, everyone. My name is Therese Nicklas, or Therese Nicklas. I am the owner and founder of the Wealth Coach for Women, located in Massachusetts, where I empower women with smart strategies so that they can create true wealth. And true wealth is the things that money cannot buy, which is a life filled with joy, purpose, and balance. I work remotely, so I can work with anyone, anywhere in the country that speaks English, and I am happy to be here today.
Okay, and because of your message and the meaning behind what you do, can you express to us the reason why you've chosen to help women?
Yes, I have been in financial services my entire career, one phase or another, which is over 40 years. And along the way, I noticed that women were basically ignored when it came to finances. And it was almost like, pat the little lady on the head and, she'll
Mm-hmm.
figure it out later, or, leave it all to the man. And so many women, it was like the man was the financial plan. So if the man wasn't there, they were stuck. And I saw it in my own life. I saw it with family members who were of that post World War II generation in particular, where they
Mm-hmm.
stayed home, raised the family. The man went out and worked. He was the breadwinner. And as a result, he basically controlled the money. And if the husband left or died, they were really stranded. And I noticed that in the financial services industry, Teresa, if you saw advertising, it was a man in a blue suit with a white shirt talking to another man in a blue suit with a white shirt. Women were just not present. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
included. And this was up until even now. I mean, if you see any ads for anything financial,
Mm-hmm.
other than shopping, you don't see women in the ads.
Oh my goodness,
So
that's so true.
I decided that I wanted to focus on not just the investing side, but
Mm-hmm.
really giving women the education so that they have the confidence that they're making smart money decisions.
Wonderful. Now, what would you advise a woman who totally really she's a stay-at-home mom now and she's totally dependent on her husband financially. She doesn't know anything about the bills, she doesn't know anything about the accounts. Terry, I just need you to share a word of wisdom with them.
Have a conversation. Have a conversation with your spouse. If your spouse is the one who handles all of the finances, you need to make a money date and sit down and go over everything so that you have an understanding. You don't have to become a CPA, but you do have to have an understanding so that if anything happened, you could pick up where they left off. So why this is so important, Teresa, not just from the pragmatic, anybody listening is going to say, gee, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to put yourself in the position, as hard as it is, of that woman who is in that position who should know about the money but doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And when does it hit you? When something goes wrong. Husband leaves, he dies, he gets sick, anything can happen. And now you're grieving, you're either grieving the loss of a loved one or you're grieving the loss of your lifestyle. And you're
Right.
in that mindset of grief. It's very difficult to make sound decisions. That doesn't, it's not putting anyone down. This is a known fact. And I went through that myself.
Really.
Yes, I did. As I said, I've been doing this work for a very long time. And my father died very suddenly. Now, while, prior to his passing, I handled the finances for my mother and father because they were elderly. So
Mm-hmm.
you would think, okay, I'm on top of everything. I knew where everything was. I didn't have that challenge. However, I didn't find out until after he passed. There was a lot of things that my father never told me. And
Wow.
I found out the hard way. And I had asked him several times about things like life insurance and other types of insurance. Oh, sweetheart, go back to sleep. What are you worried about? Everything's fine. And he would not tell me. So when he died very suddenly, and I was scrambling, and there was anger, there was
Mm-hmm.
grief. My mother was very frail. She was frail elder. I had to place her in a nursing home. It was a poop show, if you know what I mean. It was,
Mm-hmm.
everything happened at once. And
Mm-hmm.
I was spinning and was having a real hard time making decisions. And I felt that. And then once the dust settled and I, kind of got my head back on and everything, I said, if I'm going through this and this is my background, can you imagine what it's like for someone who has no background in this?
And you know what? That would be terrifying because you have a clue. You are a certified financial planner, so you know about money.
Right,
When
right.
your father passed, it still threw you for a loop. So, like a woman who has absolutely no idea, and if she has to grieve either the lost or either being left, I can imagine how she would focus to survive. And so, like, we're not having this discussion to put fear in anyone. We're
No,
just trying to give you knowledge of how important it is. If you are a woman and if you are with a husband, you need to know where things are. You need to know how much money you have. You need to know what bills need to be paid. And so that
absolutely.
was your dad. So if it was a spouse and you have children,
Right.
what do you, I mean, like, what would you do?
You know, what happens a lot of times, Teresa, is that that same person, that you just described, they will turn to anyone and take any advice, and they won't know the difference if it's good advice or bad advice. And sadly, there are some bad people out there that will take advantage.
Right.
And one of the things that happens a lot is when somebody has, that say the husband died
Mhm.
and there's life insurance.
Mhm.
Let's say it's $100,000 or a quarter of a million, whatever the number is, and they get this check. They don't understand that this money replaces lost income or is there to cover sudden bills like the funeral.
Mhm.
And someone will come along, maybe it's another gee, Mara, I could really use a new car, and they have survivor guilt. And before you know it, that money is gone. They don't really, that money's not coming back. It's a one-time thing and it's there to replace your
Mhm.
future loss, whether it's
Mhm.
their social security check, could be their pension, could be their income if they were still working, could be anything. And this money is to replace that. It's not added on. That money is not coming back. And this is part of the bad advice that a lot of women will get. And I've seen it too many times.
You know what? Can you explain survivor's guilt?
Yes. It's these are, if you look up these terms, if you Google these terms, you will discover that these are known problems. This is not something I'm making up. When
Mhm.
a person loses someone and they're still here, and especially if it's like an accident, that's even worse. But let's say a person
Mhm.
was sick and, sick for a few months or whatever, and they pass, and you're the one still here, there's a guilt associated with you being the one alive and they're gone. And there's guilt associated, especially more for women than for men, because we have that tendency to take
Mhm.
on the world and just
Mhm.
feel responsible for everything. And especially if children are involved, if there are younger children that are still living at home and you're the
Mhm.
only parent left, if the children were really close to the parent that died, now you feel very guilty because that
Mhm.
person is gone, even though you had nothing to do with it.
And you will start spending.
Right, or you start making very bad decisions
Mhm.
because you're trying to offset that guilt. So it might be that you think you can offset the guilt or the grief by
Mhm.
being a little bit extravagant with those surviving children.
Mhm.
And the problem is that that money that you're spending, you can't spend it twice. So now 5 years from now, you need a new roof on your house. You don't have any money. Those kids aren't going to help you.
No, and that's
They're going to
right. And
tell you to sell the house.
right. And then you
Right?
don't want to leave your house.
Right. So now you're in a pickle because you're forced into a situation you don't even have a chance to catch your breath.
Wow. And so based on your experience, Terry, if someone experienced a loss, how long do you think they should wait before they even consider making any financial decisions?
6 months to a year.
Wow. You need
Anything
that.
major, any major change like selling your house, moving, unless that was already in the works. Like if it was something that you and your husband had
Mhm.
already, or your spouse, that you and your spouse had already
Mhm.
discussed and you were like in that planning stage and then something suddenly changed, that
Mhm.
might be a little different. But if this is a brand new idea, I recommend not doing anything. Don't quit your job. Don't, do anything sudden that's going to impact your finances, like big,
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
6 months to a year.
Okay. All right. And so that makes a whole lot of sense. I hope and pray that no one has to deal with this. But if you are in the midst of dealing with something like this, please listen to Tara's advice and don't make any major financial decisions for at least 6 to 12 months. This is
Right,
wisdom. And
right,
in wisdom, there is safety.
right. And if you are going to seek advice, I recommend a third party, not because I am a third party or you,
Hmm.
Theresa, you're a third party, but
Hmm.
I've seen too many times when a person will turn to a relative, maybe it's a child, maybe it's a sibling, or somebody like that. And those people they often don't know any more about finances than you do. And you're taking advice from them, and they can
Hmm.
very easily steer you down the wrong path. So, as a quick example, if you'd like to hear one, we
Yes.
had a family member pass away this summer, and he was the one who handled everything. And
Hmm.
his wife did not know where anything was, but her daughter had been trying to help her prior to the passing. They knew he was going to die, so they had some time to plan for this. However, she goes to work and she's getting all kinds of information and opinions from the people that she works with. Like, oh, you'll get his whole, one person told her, you'll get his whole Social Security check.
Mm.
So she was all set to retire and get the Social Security check, not even knowing how much that was. So her daughter called me and she said, my mother was one of the people at work told her this information. Is it true? I said, yes and no. Yes, you will get his whole check. However, you need to know what that means because the person who died was younger than full retirement age, which means their full check is discounted from what their full retirement age is.
I bet that was shocking to them.
It was. And I said, technically, do you get the full check? Yes, but that full check is not a full check. It would only
Right.
be 80% of the benefit that in this particular case, she would
Hmm.
get 80% of his benefit. And if she was still working because she was younger than full retirement age, it would be discounted even further. So she'd be giving up a lot of money permanently. It doesn't change once you become full retirement age. And that was the other piece of advice that this well-meaning person gave her. Oh, when you turn 67, you get the full benefit. No, you don't. If you were born before 1954, yes, you have the opportunity to do a reset. But if you're born 1954 and later, you don't. Whatever you start with is what you get.
I hope they're listening and I hope they heard what you said. And I'm so glad that she called and got that information from you.
Me too. And the other thing, when you call Social Security, you're the luck of the draw of who's going to give you accurate information. So seriously, I've seen people get the wrong, and I know for a fact it's the wrong
Wow.
answer. And the right answer is readily available on the Social Security website. You can look up almost anything. Of course, it's written in Social Security language, which is almost like a foreign language, so it might be a little hard to decipher. But that's where, calling somebody that is a professional, that is objective and unbiased and going to be able to help you navigate, even if you pay them a couple of $100s for their time, it could save you tens of thousands of dollars in
Mm.
mistakes.
And it would be well worth it over your lifetime.
Absolutely. And your peace of mind, just knowing, well,
Hmm.
this person's a professional, they know what they're talking about, and get references. Make sure that before you don't just pull some, well, I know we don't see phone books anymore, but don't just pull
Hmm.
someone's name off the internet.
Hmm.
Talk to people that work with the financial professional and ask their opinion.
Okay, thank you so much, Terry, for that advice. And then going back, what we were talking about, how we have some women that stay home and the men go out to work. And honestly, some people, that's their belief, their money mindset, that the wife stays home, the husband takes care of everything else. So now
Right.
leaning towards that way, one of your specialties is money mindset.
That's right.
So,
Because 80% of your success, Theresa, comes from your mindset, 20% comes from your skill set.
okay, so let's talk about the money mindset. Can you explain to everyone, based on your experience, this money mindset that we have?
Yes. So your money mindset is how you view money. So if you hit pause and you
Mm-hmm.
think about the word money,
Mm-hmm.
what comes up for you? Do you feel a knot in your, like around your belly button, your solar plexus? Do you feel stress? Do you feel fear? What feelings come up for you when you think of the word money? Or do you feel nothing? That's anything is fine. There's no right or wrong answer. But the answer to that question tells you what your money mindset is. If you feel a lot of angst when you think about money, then that tells you that you have a negative money mindset. If when you think about money, thoughts go through your head like, I live paycheck to paycheck, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to get ahead, or people with money are evil, or anything of that nature, those are examples of a negative money mindset. And if that's what you're putting out to the universe, that's what you're going to get back. Because let's face it, Theresa, if you, in the back of your mind, what we call your subconscious beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
that's, I like to
Mm-hmm.
point back here,
Mm-hmm.
if you think that money, people with money are bad, do you want to be a bad person? No, right?
True.
You don't want to be a bad
So
person.
true.
So
No.
what happens? You do everything you can without even realizing it not to have money because you don't want to be a bad person.
That's right.
So your thought of I live paycheck to paycheck, that becomes your reality
Because that's what you're thinking.
because that's what you're thinking.
Okay, and so that's a big, big deal. But you said something pretty powerful too at the beginning. And if we can tie that into money mindset, like people think money can buy them happiness and joy.
Right.
Terry, you have to talk about that.
Well, money cannot buy you happiness, Theresa, but poverty won't buy you anything.
Amen.
Happiness comes from within.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I talk about true wealth, those are the things that money cannot buy and death won't take away. So you
Mm-hmm.
think about the things that bring you joy, give you that sense of purpose and fulfillment. That's wealth. That is your
Yeah.
internal wealth. If you happen to be fortunate enough to be working in a career path that gives you that sense of purpose and joy, no matter what you are earning, you are a wealthy person.
Oh,
If
that's
your career path is to stay home and take care of your children, and you
mm-hmm.
have the good fortune to be able to afford to
Mm-hmm.
do that, because that's a luxury today,
Mm-hmm. It
then
is.
you are a wealthy person.
That is so powerful. And people need to realize that also. And see that too, it goes along with our mindset and how we were raised. If you were
Right.
raised to believe that if you had all the money in the world, you would be happy. But that's really not true because,
No,
statistically, like what I've learned is like a lot of the wealthy people, they are not so happy because they're always worried about losing it. Or either
right.
they're worried about losing a friend because a friend is going to come and ask to borrow this or to borrow that. So you have to find your joy and your peace and your happiness in something other than money.
Exactly, exactly, because money is fleeting. But it doesn't mean that having money cannot do things that bring you happiness. So, for example, if you are a generous person or
Mm-hmm.
philanthropic, you can't be philanthropic without money.
That's right.
And if it means a lot to you, if the legacy or the footprints that you want to leave in the sand before you leave this earth have
Wow.
to do with philanthropy, then you're going to need money in order to do that in most cases. But there is
Mo-
an exception. As they say in the Bible, it's not just treasure, the treasure can also be time.
Yes, it
So
can.
if you have a skill that is, and we all have skills that somebody
Mm-hmm.
else does not, that we can share. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have a skill that you can share, maybe you're a great cook. Maybe, you're great with money. Maybe, it could be anything that you have a skill that you can share with another person, time,
Mm-hmm.
talent, and treasure. Being able to do that can be very fulfilling. And if you are philanthropic with your time and your talent, there's nothing wrong with that. That can be just as rewarding
Right.
emotionally as being philanthropic with your treasure.
That is so true. And so that's when like your message is so powerful and it's so meaningful. And so like if someone really listens to what your message is and what you're saying, it's really like
Mhm.
life changing. And so the money mindset is a hindrance to so many people that they don't really even realize it. And so I know with your experience that you have heard the term poverty mindset.
Mhm.
Tara, there's so many people that have that mindset Can you expand on that just a little bit? Because I want people to be able to, women, men, to be able to determine after listening to you if they have a poverty mindset, because that can destroy your financial future.
Exactly. So an impoverished mindset would be one that would be a very negative money mindset. If you're
Mm-hmm.
always focused on lack, if
Mm-hmm.
you never see what you do have, if you don't show
Mm-hmm.
gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
attitude of gratitude is enriching.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you are grateful for what you have, even if it's a dollar bill, and there's an exercise that I teach my clients, and it is what's called an I am statement. The two words I am are very powerful and they're very spiritual.
Oh, yes, they are.
So if you, in your mind, to build up that gratitude, I am so happy and grateful now that I am. So you start and you end with I am, and then you
Ooh.
fill in the blank. I am so happy and grateful now that I have a surplus of money, even if that surplus is $1. You bless that surplus.
Oh, yes.
It's this is a habit that I teach others. It's not the amount, it's the habit of saving. So if you can save $1 and get in the habit of saving $1 a day, it may sound hokey. You say, Terry, I'll be 1,000 years old before I get ahead. No, you won't, because it's all about the habits. That is telling your brain, in the back of your brain, that reciprocal activating system, that you do not live paycheck to paycheck because you have money to save. And eventually it won't be $1. It'll be $10, then $100, and so forth, because you're building a habit and you're shifting your mindset from one of being impoverished to one of being abundant.
You know, Terry, that is so powerful, because it's like you got to keep telling yourself. And once you keep telling yourself, you're going to start believing it. Once you start believing it, it can come true. It can
Right.
actually happen.
Yep. You got to feel it to heal it, Theresa.
That's right. And then this is getting so good, but these money myths, I want you to touch on the money myths. I know that there's like three particular ones that you might mention, because some people, Terry, believe it or not, like I take things for granted, like automatically, oh, they know that. But we have so many people that's going to be listening to us. They have no clue about some of these money myths that you can talk to us about.
Sure. Well, a lot of it we've already touched on.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the myths is that if you feeling lack and living paycheck to paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be your reality for your whole life. That is a myth. So by learning how to shift your money mindset and come from a mindset of gratitude, you will then find that you are abundant.
Mm-hmm.
So the myth of thinking that where you are right now is where you will always be, that is a myth.
Because we have the power to change. God
We
has
have
given
the
us
power.
the power.
It's
Yes.
all in your choices. So if you've ever studied anybody who has lifted themselves out of poverty, if it's been done before, it's not impossible. If one other human has managed to figure that out, you can figure it out too. It doesn't mean you'll necessarily become a billionaire. That's okay, but
Right.
you won't be impoverished.
Right. So please, everyone, listen to Terry. If you have a spouse, number one, learn about your money, where everything is, how to pay everything. And really, we're not here to hurt anyone. We are here to
To
help.
help, to serve.
Right. To serve. So please listen to what she's saying. And we need to work on the money mindset. And so the money mindset is just so, so important. And so you mentioned habits.
Yes,
And some people, because it's their natural way of doing things, they don't realize it's a bad habit that's taking them away from a sound financial future.
right.
So before I let you go, can we just discuss bad money habits?
Well, one of the bad money habits is leaving everything to someone else, like leaving everything up to someone else to handle. That's a bad habit. And a
Okay,
lot of
why?
times we do that because either we don't have the confidence that we can do it ourselves, or it's just the way you've always seen things done. So having the habit of complacency of, well, that's how it's always been done, so that's how I'm going to continue to do it, that is a bad habit. The
Wonderful.
second bad habit is never saving. So
Mm,
as it doesn't matter how much, it's the habit of putting something aside, not using every dollar that you earned. That's a bad habit. And the most important bad habit that you really need to shift is getting rid of those negative limiting beliefs that seem to, they're like an MP3 player in your brain, the itty bitty committee that's always talking to you and telling you negative things. And be empowered and get educated on it. There isn't anything that you can't find on a YouTube video or Google or somewhere. Find a good source, find a good resource, and just study up on it. If this has been done before, which it has, it's not impossible. You can do it.
Put that effort into it, learn, get educated, get around people who want to be successful and people that can help you, because sometimes what people don't know is, like, sometimes if you're around bad company, they're not going to help you. They're going to tell you.
You just hit the nail on the head, Theresa. That is so important. Who you surround yourself with. Look around. Now, one quick example I can give you, and I love giving this example, and I know we're probably near the end of our time together here, but in my family, my grandmother was the role model for money. She came from, my background here is Sicily. That's where my family is from. And she left a very impoverished situation, but she never saw herself as poor. She felt confident that if she was in a different environment, that she would thrive. And she did. So she and my grandfather, after they were married, they came to America, and they were as blue collar as it gets. He was a barber, she was a seamstress, but she always managed to put a few pennies away. And she saw this house, the house that they had, my grandfather being the barber, he had a little barber shop that he rented that was in front of this particular house. And she had it in her head that she wanted to buy that house. It took her 20 years to save up for it.
20 years.
20 years. 20 years. And she could squeeze a quarter until George Washington cried, but she never saw herself as poor, and she never complained. She saw herself, she was grateful, and she saw herself as someone with unlimited opportunity and was willing to put the work in and save for 20 years to buy this house. Now, she had 4 children, 3 sons. All 3 sons went into the exact same business. They all served in the military during the war. They all came out of the war, used the GI Bill, went to school, were in the exact same industry, and only one of them did not die penniless. Now, you'd think that they're all under the same roof, all having the same examples. Why is it that 2 of them died penniless? One of them, who's still alive, he's in his mid-90s, and he's still living the life because he made different decisions. They all earned about the same amount of money, but he made different decisions. He saw money differently. He saw money as a tool that you need to use to live your lifestyle. One of them was my father, who he was like the glutton at the all-you-can-eat buffet. No matter how much money he had, it was never enough. And and his other brother was always looking for these little shortcuts, like, get-rich-quick schemes. They didn't follow their mother's example, and because of it, they had significantly different results. So if you are someone who is struggling with money, be honest with yourself and take a look at your habits and take a look at the things that you're doing, because anyone has the ability, if you have the desire and the work ethic, to pull yourself out of it. Even if it means working 2 jobs, just look around and say, what can I do? Not what I can't do. Get rid of the victim mentality. Get rid of that, woe is me. Tell the itty bitty committee that's giving you that information to get lost, and just get up off your duff and get it done. You can do it.
Well, you gave me goosebumps. You almost made me got teary-eyed because I was going to ask you to give like some words of inspiration. You did it without me asking, but it's so phenomenal that they had 3. It was 3 of them.
Yeah.
And out of the 3, 2 died penniless.
Yeah, one of them, we literally had to pass the hat around to raise the money to bury him. That's how bad it was.
Well, Terry, with all your experience, that is a passionate story that you just shared. Can you pull out of your hat one more inspirational thing that can help someone, and basically, even if they change their money mindset, how can they improve the results of their future?
Let me think.
I know you know.
I do. That's my best story, and I tell that story all the time, because every time I think about my grandmother and how hard she worked and how she never complained. Never complained. Never thought, oh, you know what, we're poor. Never complained. And I think I look at her and my other grandparents who never really figured it out, and they died in the 30s. I mean, it was during the Depression, but they died very poor. They never quite got their act together. And I wonder about that. Like, why is it that one set of grandparents, figured
Yeah.
out, but they all came from bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
The background that you see is beautiful, but the town where my family was from was very, very poor. I visited it last year, and I was actually stood in front of the home where my father was born and walked in their
Wow.
footsteps. And I saw, I mean, this is 100 years later, Teresa, and I saw the poverty with my own eyes. And it's like my grandmother barely scratched the surface in the stories that she told. And I looked at that and I thought, if she wasn't that brave, that would be me.
If she was not that brave. And so, you know what? That's how you can bless the listeners. When you look at those three fellas,
Yeah.
if they just would have changed their money mindsets, what type of results do you think they would have gotten?
They would have been, I mean, they had opportunities where they would have been amazing, amazing. They earned a lot of money. They had really good, thriving businesses. They made bad choices. They didn't save, they didn't think about the future. Everything was now, now, now. And the one who planned for the future, but he was very balanced. He not only some people, Teresa, when they plan for the future, they don't live today. They're only
Right.
waiting for tomorrow. You have to have a balance between the two. I think that's probably the best advice I can give anyone is to get a sense of balance between today, the present, and what you need to do for tomorrow. Because it's not all about tomorrow, but it's certainly not all about today either.
Now that could be on a billboard. That was so good. And so now, Terry, if we have someone listening and they want to find you, please tell us how we can find you.
I have a website. It's wealthcoachforwomen.com. I
Okay.
do give free consultations. I'll give you a 30-minute strategy session if you have questions about your future. And if we find that the services that I offer aren't a fit for what it is that you need, I will let you go with at least a few tips to get you started so that you don't go away empty-handed and it's not a waste of your time. And at any event, I love meeting new people and I love helping people. So if there's something that I can do for your listeners, I certainly will do that. And I'm going to put a couple of links. I don't know if I already gave them to you, Teresa. Did I give you my links?
You did not.
Okay, I'm going to let me do that. I should have had that ready. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. If they want this information, trust me, they're going to stay here and going to get it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I am going to put some links in the chat, and then you can put them wherever you put everything. And
Okay.
there's going to be a link to my what have I got here? I'm going to give you a link to my strategy session calendar.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give you that. Where the heck is the chat? It keep disappearing on me.
Did you find it?
I did. Okay, so I've got that. I'm going to give you a link to my virtual contact card. It's like a virtual business card, so that has everything.
Okay, listeners, and we're going to put all of this in the show notes for you. If
Yeah.
you need help or you have questions or you need inspiration, mainly too, if you need to change your money mindset, please go to the show notes and click this link, either one, so that you can locate Terry. Okay, she
Okay,
wants to
and then
talk.
I'm also going to, let me just, there's a link there for a special gift for podcast listeners. It's a toolkit that I've put together for podcast listeners that should help get you on your way.
Wonderful. Now, who does not like a gift?
Yeah.
So please, please click the link. If you need help, if you need advice, if you need inspiration, if you feel like your money mindset is impoverished, please call Tara because we don't want you to die penniless. And women, we want you to know where the money is, how to manage the money, where the insurance is, all of that. Reach out to Terry so that she can help you. And Terry, I want to say thank you so much for this inspirational conversation. It has been eye-opening, it has been moving, and I just want to thank you again for joining Bartelle's Money Talk.
Well, you're very welcome. And Teresa, I will be running one of my free workshops in January. Usually I
Okay.
do it around the middle of the month. And
Mm-hmm.
this will be like the Kickstart for 2025. We'll be talking about setting goals, but also talking about shifting your money mindset. So if any of your listeners would like to be invited, they can go onto my website and fill out the contact form and just say, invite me. And then I'll know who they are and I can add them to my list.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much, Tara, for that information. And I look forward to talking with you again.
Well, me too. This was a lot of fun, Theresa. Thank you. And
It
I
was.
thank you for doing this, for having this show and helping people with their finances. It's such a needed thing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so, again, thank you for being here with me today. And we will talk again later.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.